finishing off our series in Luke, finishing off chapter 8. And this whole section, as we've been looking at it, has focused in on how Jesus is the Saviour and how he has displayed his power. The last few stories we've seen him calm the storm with his word, power over nature. The previous story, Jesus' power over the forces of evil as he drove the demons out of Legion. And in this story, we're going to see Jesus' power displayed to save this woman who is subject to bleeding and this girl who has died, Jairus' daughter, and displaying Jesus' power to save in these situations. And as always, I encourage you, go take some time, pray, ask God to prepare your heart and to prepare the hearts of those who you'll be teaching. Read the passage a few times, and I'll highlight a few things that have stood out for me in this story. A few ways in which Luke, as a brilliant storyteller, just links these stories together. We're introduced here to this girl of about 12 years old, but we're also told that this lady has been bleeding for 12 years. Now, Luke doesn't normally give us these types of details. We aren't told the age of other people, but he specifically tells us this girl's age and that this woman has been bleeding for 12 years to link these stories together for us. We also see this man called Jairus. He falls at Jesus' feet, and this woman falls trembling at Jesus' feet. Another way linking these stories together. And then Jesus' two key statements, which we'll focus on together, where he says to the woman, "Daughter, your faith has healed you, go in peace." And then to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just believe, and she will be healed." They are really the two key statements that we want to focus on in this section. Just a couple of other things to highlight. We see Luke tells us immediately she was healed, or the bleeding stopped. When she retells the story, she says immediately, instantly she was healed. And then we see here her spirit returned, and at once. There's an immediacy to this power of Jesus. And by highlighting the immediacy of this healing, Luke is showing that what doctors couldn't do for 12 years, in an instant, Jesus did. Her bleeding stopped. It was gone. It wasn't the healing started. The healing was done. And again, here, this girl at once stood up. It's an immediate, she stands up and she wants something to eat. This isn't, she wakes up and she's now in the process of feeling better. Often when you wake up after being sick, it takes a while before you want to eat, but she stands up at once. She's up and about, wanting to eat again. Just highlighting again Jesus' awesome power over sickness and death in this section. Just a couple of other things to highlight. Luke highlights the touch of Jesus. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus says. Peter kind of says, "Well, everybody's touching you," but then Jesus highlights, "No, somebody touched me, and this was a different touch. Power has gone out from me." And then she comes and tells why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed by Jesus. So again, just showing kind of the touch of Jesus here made and a world of difference to this woman. Power went out of him. And then just one other thing, just to highlight the repetition of dead or dying. So this daughter was dying. Later on, "Your daughter is dead." And then Jesus saying she's not dead, but asleep, but they laugh at him knowing that she was dead. By saying this, Jesus is saying, to you, death is the end. For me, death is just sleep. I can wake her up from this. Jesus just again displaying his awesome power over these forces that for us we have no control over. When somebody's dead, they're dead. But Jesus is going to wake her up now. And just a couple of other ways how Luke links these stories together. It says, daughter, your faith has healed you. And then very next, your daughter is dead. Luke is just using a tool there to link these stories together. And as I've said, the key thing that we want to zoom in on in this story is these statements by Jesus. Your faith has healed you. Don't be afraid, just believe. You'll be healed. The Greek word used here for healed in both of these cases is the word sozo. Which can be translated as healed, but the key way that it's consistently used often in the New Testament is translated as saved. So what Luke is doing in these two statements is making this link between faith, belief, and salvation. Your faith has healed you, just believe and she will be healed. And your faith has saved you, just believe and she'll be saved. And in this whole section that has been leading up and teaching us about how Jesus saves, Jesus is the Savior of the world. He has power over to save in the storm. He has power to save that man from the evil spirit. Here he has power to save this woman who is bleeding. He has power to save this girl from death. And Luke is building this case that Jesus is the one with this power to save. But these two responses, daughter, your faith has healed you, just believe. Luke wants us to see that trust is key when it comes to Jesus. Jesus saying, trust me, trust me. And by showing Jesus' great power in these stories, Luke wants us to see why Jesus is worth trusting. He has phenomenal power. And as Luke continues through his story, we see this power ultimately on display on the cross, where Jesus most powerfully shows his power over death as he goes to the cross, dies for the sins of the world, and then walks out of the tomb on Easter Sunday very much alive. He goes and eats with his disciples, showing them that he was very much alive. And the ultimate response to this Jesus is believe, put your faith in him to save you. Now, it wouldn't be right for us to read this story and see, okay, this woman put her faith in Jesus and was healed from this bleeding, so if we have enough faith, then we will be healed. That's not Luke's point in these stories. Luke's point is to show Jesus' power over these things, and ultimately one day all sickness and all death will be banished from our world when Jesus returns again. Luke's point in this passage is to show Jesus' power and to call all of us to trust him. And so as you teach this, I hope that you have a great time just digging into rejoicing in Jesus' great power. It's phenomenal, the two miracles that Jesus does here. And the focus that Luke wants us to walk away with is a greater trust. Will we trust in Jesus to be the one who saves us. And so as you teach this to others, I trust that you'll have a wonderful time digging into this and rejoicing in who Jesus is and what he's come to do. So God bless as you teach this to others.